Good morning, everybody. I don't know if it's the morning time as you're listening to this, but it's the morning for me. So I'm still waking up. My brain is a little bit slow, but I hope it wakes up, and I'm going to try to speak a little more quickly than I did the last time, but no guarantees. I can't help but take my time here and there as I figure out how to form a sentence to make my point best. Today, I want to talk about Faulkner and modernism. And I'm going to start with a quote that is by a poet named Philip Larkin. And he wrote a poem called On the Great War, referring to World War I. And World War I is around 1914 to 1918. Bora will, I'm sure, correct me if I'm wrong, and I hope he will. This is referring to this theme of the age of anxiety. And he writes, "Never such innocence, never before or since, as changed itself to past, without a word. The men leaving the gardens tidy, 10,000s of marriages lasting a little while longer, never such innocence again." And of course he is describing what is happening as people are going off in droves to die in the trenches of World War I. So World War I was a big contributor to this theme that we're calling the age of anxiety. Another important contributor is Sigmund Freud and his concept of the unconscious, or what he called the subconscious, but what later became known as the unconscious. Why was this concept so disturbing or anxiety-provoking? Well, it's the first time that there was a scientific movement, quotes around scientific. Some might argue if Freud was scientific or not, but nonetheless, he had a tremendous impact on Western intellectual thought with his idea of the subconscious, and this concept that human beings aren't completely in control of their choices, that there is some subconscious impulse going on in everybody's life that affects the way they interact with people, the decisions they make, how they govern their lives. And essentially Freud is saying that most people are not in control. They are, in a way, sometimes victimized by their subconscious due to some kind of neurotic disposition, which he said most people had, and therefore civilization was sick. I'll quote something interesting from Freud where he says, quote, "A civilization which leaves so large a number of its participants unsatisfied and drives them into revolt neither has nor deserves the prospect of a lasting existence." Albert Einstein was another interesting person around this time, and his theory of relativity, which completely undermined the elegant and predictable physics of the post-Renaissance age, and the ideas of Isaac Newton and the Newtonian model of the universe, where gravity could be predicted, which suggested that sooner or later we would be able to scientifically calculate all of the goings-on of the universe, that physics was something that we were eventually going to come up with elegant formulas to explain. In a way, Newton's physics are wonderful and everyone thought they were, but with the introduction of quantum physics, where you start looking at what it is that makes up matter, what is it that makes up the atom, What is it that makes up the little pieces of the atoms? Albert Einstein proposed some theories that totally contradict the solidity of Newtonian physics. And his idea of relativity, in which space and time become these pliable concepts. They might even be considered constructs, but not necessarily realities. This was a big challenge to the way people previously thought about the world. Another important thinker who came a little before Freud and Einstein in World War I, a madman, if you will, Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most difficult last names to spell. For me, I always get it wrong. It's got so many consonants. Nietzschze. Nihilism, or nihilism, I'm not sure how you want to pronounce it. This was a philosophy that he developed, and he said that there is no such thing as fixed truths. Humans believe all of the time in things that are not true. And Nietzsche was highly critical of human thinking in general, and the incredible ways that humans can deceive themselves. So I challenge you to think about, how do we deceive ourselves constantly? You don't have to look very far to see this is going on in our day and age. The next thing another thing that he developed was this idea of reality being in a constant flux. Reality is an endless becoming, and it's beyond words and language. All language is a metaphor, useful to us, but ultimately detached from reality. I think we were talking a little bit about this when we were talking about dreams and the language of dreams, and how often words fail to describe what it is we want to say, or what we are feeling, or some kind of truth that is just out there beyond the threshold of our consciousness. Likely, Faulkner was very interested in this idea, and his writing is definitely trying to convey the limitations of language, and in so doing, paradoxically expanding what language can do. Nietzsche also went on to talk about how fixed truths in religion and morality are just an illusion. We've created them, and essentially, quote, God is dead. This is a famous quote by Nietzsche that is important to take away. He said morality is simply just relative to the individual. There's no such thing as a universal right or wrong. What all this leads to, and it can be exciting or frightening, and that is that there is an abyss, a bottomless pit so deep of uncertainty, and a knowledge that all foundations of human civilization are based on lies. Anxiety-provoking? For me, it is. So those are a few of the things that are part of the intellectual climate leading up to William Faulkner and the book we're reading, As I Lay Dying.